My name is Steve Nelly. I'm with the Hill Country Land Trust. We're a nonprofit organization whose purpose is to protect and conserve the Texas Hill Country. Those things about the Hill Country that are very special to us all, the wildlife habitat, the open spaces, the farms and ranches, healthy watersheds. And so we work with private landowners to help them customize conservation easements to provide that permanent, perpetual protection of farms and ranches. We work with landowners to help them become better conservationists and stewards of their land. This field day is one of the services that we offer to landowners. We're here at the C.L. Browning Ranch today in Blanco County, and the topic of today's field day is looking at the role of juniper in the hill country. Most people call it cedar. Many of you here may proclaim a hatred for cedar or a dislike, and that's common. We're going to try to look at juniper from a more holistic standpoint. It is not an evil, insidious, noxious invader, but that it's a native part of the hill country. And it was here in some abundance before any white man ever set foot in the hill country. So there are some myths and there's some misperceptions associated with juniper and cedar. And we're not going to try to make everybody a cedar hugger, but we want everyone to see juniper from a balanced perspective. Our intent is to just be one more source of information, good, sound, scientifically based information on how to take care of the land, how to maintain and protect the things we love about the hill country.
Plenty of trucks, plenty of hay bales up here. Well, I have a conservation easement on our property over near Driftwood, and I'm here to learn about cedar management. We have quite a bit of cedar that's grown up over the years. We have some places where it needs to come off, and we have some places where it needs to stay. So I'm here to learn about it, figure out the best way to approach how do we decide where to put it, or where to keep it, where to get rid of it, and how to dispose of it.
We're in what you might call a cedar thicket or a cedar break. The ranch owners and Scott sat down together and made a sort of deliberate, thoughtful decision that we don't want to eradicate cedar on this ranch, but we want to manage it, we want to reduce it, we want to thin it out, and what they ended up with is their goal was for the ranch to end up being 75% sort of a savanna grassland, but 25% of the area was going to be retained in thick cedar. That's their plan, that's their intent. And so it has some beneficial functions, it has value. The smart landowner is one who tries to see that. We're not going to try to tell anyone today how much cedar you should leave or how much you should remove off of a ranch. That's an individual ranch decision. What I want to start out doing, here we're in this thicket of cedar, and some of you are thinking, man, that looks really worthless to me. The hill country was and is a very complex place. So the hill country historically, it had forests, dense forests of juniper and oak and other species. It had woodlands, it had savannas, it had open areas, it had all of these things. It wasn't one or the other. So we have now responsibility to perhaps try to make up for some of the land management of our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers. We can do better. We could go back into any of these cedar areas, sweep away the leaves, an inch or two, and below that you're going to see this mound of rich, dark, blackish brown, organically enriched soil. And so what grows on a degraded, eroded, white subsoil area? What grows there best? Cedar. Even if you have really grown up disliking cedar, it has this ability over time to grow and begin to heal back the land by producing that type of soil. We all know how magical organic matter is in soil. Guess where the highest organic matter content has ever been measured in Texas by soil scientists? It's underneath Juniper in Real County, Texas, on a soil just about like what we're standing on here. My point is simply that cedar is a multifaceted plant. There are reasons why we need to control it and manage it and thin it, but there's also reasons to appreciate it. So when someone tells you that a cedar is a sterile environment and nothing else lives there, just look for yourself. Now it's different. It's different than a grassland. And we're not saying that one is better than the other. Historically, there were both in the hill country. We're going to get the best plant diversity, the best wildlife habitat when we have a combination of woodland, forest, shrubland, savanna, and grassland. Look how selectively they did this work. When it's thinned out in patches, selectively, plant diversity goes up, habitat value goes up. And so we get this release when we remove or reduce one species, such as juniper, we get other species that begin to take its place. Why not learn to recalibrate what's pretty? And when you look at that old cedar pile, you can say, that's beautiful, because when you walk around it, you see wildflowers, you see hackberry, you see sumac, you see redbud popping up. Beautiful. I love it. Please, when you do some cedar cutting, whether it's hand cutting, whether it's with an excavator or with a bobcat with a shear, please leave a good bit of that slash laying on the ground. Train your eyes to see what that's going to be like. There's a microclimate there. It's a little bit shadier, it's a little bit cooler, it's a little bit moisture, it retains moisture. Those leaves die and drop, so you're getting a little bit of organic input. And I think a big thing would be it's somewhat protected from deer.
So what you see here behind us is an example of our juniper blanket treatment. This is where we're leaving that brush out on the ground. And we've noticed this does a variety of things for us that really, we like what it's doing for us. We're seeing that this juniper on the ground helps us to slow down some soil. We want to remember that this was a closed canopy, almost closed canopy forest, and to transition it, to slowly assist in this transition, we want to provide this a blanket of protection on the soil, and that's what the juniper is doing, slowing down some of that soil erosion. Wanted to just go over the tools we used. And so the first tool we started out with was this gentleman here. This is our shear. This is a big pair of hydraulic scissors. And this implement here is what we call the puller. This is something that we actually designed here at the ranch. And we have, with this machine on the right soil moisture days, pulled up a 12-foot taproot from a 12-foot mesquite tree. Wow. It's a pretty impressive machine. It's got incredible gripping power. And I just copied the idea off the picture I saw on the internet.
When there's a little bit of soil disturbance with the tracks on the bobcat, they think some of that disturbance can be good. It's not excessive. That would be a perfect place to perhaps hand seed some of the grasses that are no longer here. Indian grass, big blue stem, perhaps could throw in some side oats or some green springletop for a quick cover. You don't have to seed the whole area. You can seed small areas. This big blue stem is going to spread over time. There's going to be more of it 5 years from now. I'm excited to see big blue stem. It's a rare plant in Texas Hill Country. A burn location is an extensively disturbed and damaged soil. He described what happens to the soil. It's almost like nuking a soil temporarily. You can jumpstart things with seeding.
What we're trying to do here is to very quickly revegetate the site with desirable stuff, slow down that soil erosion, and eliminate the scar.
If you go to the trouble and expense of controlling cedar on a ranch, you're not just doing it to get rid of cedar. You're doing it to replace a plant that you have an excess of with grasses. So I like wildflowers, but really your goal needs to be, after you go to this trouble of doing brush control, of getting a good cover of deep-rooted perennial grasses, whether you're in the livestock business or not. We like to get people to think about managing the land as a water catchment, managing the land to hold water, store water, catch water. That's what we all want, and that's what grasses will do. In addition to plant diversity, in addition to wildlife habitat, being a responsible steward of your acre or your 100 acres or your 1,000 acres, so that when it rains, it soaks in, it slowly percolates, recharges aquifers, high quality runoff like you mentioned. It's just one of the obligations. When you decide to take ownership of a piece of land, you have a moral obligation to try to be a good steward. And one of the biggest obligations then is to try to manage that land to be a good, healthy, functional water catchment. We used to use the word watershed, but we don't want the land to shed water. We want the land to absorb water. And interestingly enough, grassland is a good water catchment, but so is a juniper and oak woodland. It can be grasses, it can be savanna, it can be woodland and forest. All of those absorb water well and store it and hold it. Scott is fully aware that his job has just started. He's not anywhere near where he wants to be, but it's in progress. And that's all any of us can hope on a piece of land, is that we're moving the right direction. And that's what we promote and advocate in the Hill Country Land Trust, is to try to help landowners. We help them, we try to encourage them and inspire them to have these dreams and visions of what they want their ranch to be. And then we're more than happy to help with our experience and expertise. And we're just delighted to be able to share the things we've learned and our experience with other landowners.